All right, I'm here with the WBO Junior Lightweight Champ Jamel Herring, 23-2, 11 knockouts, came off a career-defining performance against Carl Frampton 10 days ago. How you feeling, champ?
I feel good. I feel good. I feel just been overwhelmed with a lot of happiness. But overall, I just feel blessed, and I'm happy just to be standing here still as a champion.
Yeah, and it was a hell of a fight. You know, people said going in it's a 50-50 fight. You know, there was a lot of naysayers saying, you know, Frampton was the guy. You know, he had this legacy, you know, for his country on the line. But in a sense, you shocked the world that night. What was that like?
It was a great moment for my career. Like in the end, it was sad as a fan to see Carl Frampton go out like that in retirement, but it was pretty much one of those. It was him or me, But overall, I was happy with my performance and for me the way it ended in dominating fashion. So it was a great moment for my career.
Now, listen, Jamel, I mean, everyone knows by now that follows boxing to any degree that you were a Marine, but I don't know if everybody really knows your story. I mean, you began boxing in 2001, I think about 16 years old.
Right.
2 years later, you enlist in the Marines. How did that come about?
For me, it was all about what happened with 9/11, the 9/11 incident, and me being a New Yorker, of course, that hit close to home. And I just felt like I needed to do something more with my life at the time. I wasn't typically looking at going to college. Like even though I had great grades in my senior year and everything, but I just felt like I just needed to do something more. And plus, my father, he enlisted in the army back when he was younger. So I felt that I wanted to do something similar, which was join the Marine Corps.
Now, I would never compare doing what you did as a Marine, and by the way, thank you for your service. But then you go into one of the toughest sports that's out there in professional boxing. What did the Marines prepare you for to become a prize fighter?
For starters, it prepared me to learn how to deal with constructive criticism, of course, especially with this sport. Even the best get criticized, but for the most part, it prepared me to be mentally tough because they always say boxing 80% mental, 20% physical is what they say. So yeah, for me, boxing it's more therapeutic for me dealing with my time as a Marine because as we know, I did 2 deployments in Iraq. So when I'm in like at the heat of the moment in a fight, I always reflect back on to where I've been at to where I am now, and I always say, I've been through worse. What's the worst that could happen here?
Well, and that's a great segue because you turned pro in 2012. You suffered a couple of losses. You weren't the highly touted guy coming out of the Olympics like the Errol Spence and some of the other guys. So usually, you get a couple of losses early on. They pretty much write you off in this sport. How did you? I mean, was it the Marines? What was that mindset to kind of like fight through all that?
It was definitely the Marine Corps definitely played a part in that, and I always been the type of person to never quit. Never want to quit, and then look back years later and say I could have did this or I could have did that. So I just continue to get up and dust myself off and roll with the punches. And you're right. And then yeah, that's a great point that you made. You are right. Coming out of the 2012 team, I already had my back against the wall. I wasn't the highly touted guy that they were looking at. They were looking at more people were more focused on guys like Joseph Diaz, Jose Ramirez, Errol Spence, Rashid Warren, and so on. I mean, even my sister Clarissa Shields had a better, upside, even though she did an Olympic run in 2016, but she had more of a spotlight on her for her professional run than I did. But I just always been the type of person that always want to prove people wrong. So that was another one of my another reason why I had that fuel to keep pushing forward.
Could it possibly been like an age thing because you're an older fighter? Even back then you would have been considered older? Do you think that was held against you?
I'm pretty sure that played a part. That played a part in it. And like you mentioned earlier, they look at it, that the fact that I started boxing relatively late than what you normally would see from an amateur boxer. Like usually these kids start at like 6, 7 years old, and they're competing by 8 years old. You know, for me, I started when I was 16. So yeah, that definitely played a part in it, and looked at it as I didn't have enough experience, even though I was an Olympian. I still wasn't like even then I wasn't given much of a chance to do anything during the Olympics as well.
You got to answer this question for me, Jamel, because I've covered Errol Spence since he's gone pro, here in Dallas for years.
Right.
And I always hear this stuff, oh, well, he can't box or he, this or that. You don't become an Olympian if you can't box, right? I mean, is that true?
That is definitely true. That's why I always look at even my opponents today. I always look at their background in terms of amateur status because, yeah, you definitely can't get far in the amateur boxing scene. Trying to be one-dimensional or just a brawler because unless you're knocking everyone out, which is rare in the amateur, especially with the headgear and everything like that, and the point system at the time, it's kind of a bit hard to succeed and go far in the Olympics.
Right. But I would always hear that knock. Oh, well, he can't box. I'm like, well, you guys obviously don't know the sport, so.
Right. Exactly. That's a bunch of nonsense. I mean, you can't like I said, you can't even get on the international scene if you can't box. Like you gotta have a lot of tricks in the bag to go far on that level as well.
Well, I appreciate you clearing that up for everybody out there. So it took you 7 years though to finally reach the mountaintop and become a world champion in 2019. I know you just had one of the biggest fights, if not the biggest fight of your career with Carl, but
Right.
What was that moment like to get that title finally?
It was one of the best feelings of my career, of my life, because as we know, I had a daughter that passed away from SIDS when she was only 2 months old. And the day I won the world title would have been her 10th birthday. So, that was a tremendous moment for me and just in life. Like, it just proved that if you never give up, you can go as far as you possibly want to go. So that meant the world to me. But obviously, of course, the last fight was huge for me as well because I was coming off a rough 2020 COVID. I didn't have the best performance in my only fight of that year, and people were again, they were counting me out. But I knew I needed that signature win with a guy that had a stronger resume than I, who had a bigger name than I. So, winning the last fight was definitely a career changing moment. I mean, I'm still even now I still reflect back on to the 3rd of April, and I'm just like, wow, like it's just how I did it, and it just shows that like I never gave up on myself, and I didn't take much of what the naysayers were saying to heart, and I just did what I had to do.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was listening to stuff with Frampton before the fight, and he got there earlier, best camp of his life. I mean, and to his credit, there was no excuses after the
Right.
fight. He definitely gave you your due, and you were the better man. But just getting there and preparing across the world, did those tours, going overseas like that kind of prepare you for a trip like
Oh
that?
yeah, definitely. Because I've been there before where I had to fly over to the Middle East for my deployments, and right out of the plane, there was no breaks. We had to go straight. We got straight into it, and it was the same thing when I got to the Dubai. Like the minute I got the plane, I said I called my team up and I said, listen, we missed about 15 hours anyway. I need to get something. I need to start working or do something to shake out. And we went straight to the gym, and we worked out. We prepared around the time schedule as well. We knew that we were going to be fighting at around like 1 a.m. anyway. At night or in Dubai to fit a good schedule with the time in the States. So that didn't bother me. Like I was training late at night anyway, and I was sleeping throughout maybe most of the day until I got up for my morning run. But in between those hours, I had plenty of time to rest and just relax and just focus on what was ahead.
Right. And you brought up the fight with Okendo, the disqualification, and clearly you're getting headbutted. Clearly there was issues there. And then, the fight got stopped. And then, like you said, the naysayers and people started taking a knock at you.
Right.
And you don't shy away from that, I noticed. You're a big player on social media. You like to have fun, and you respond to, people out there. I mean, when you were getting that feedback from people on that fight, how did it make you feel?
It was kind of, at some point it was kind of disturbing, but not for the way how they portrayed the fight. I was more upset for how they were portraying my character as a Marine. Like, I mean, I've been through worse. Like, I've been through deployments. I've suffered, loss in my personal life and things of that nature. So when people started questioning, and saying that I was a disgrace to the Marine Corps, that part bothered me. Like, the fight didn't really bother me because I knew what was wrong. Like, I mean, people forget I was just coming off the COVID-19, and that was hard on my body as it is. And then I've been cut, even the last fight, I've been cut plenty of times, but it wasn't. I found out when I went to the doctors, I had a scratched cornea, so that's why my vision was so blurred from all the headbutts. And at one point in time, when they were doing the CAT scans and X-rays and everything, they thought I had a broken orbital bone because of, they said, an injury that I previously had maybe in the past, or obviously in the past. It didn't heal properly, so they thought it was starting to shift toward my eyesight, and they thought I had a broken orbital bone at first. So we had to do more testing again, but luckily that wasn't the case. So there was a lot that I knew that was going on with that fight, but I was just more upset about people judging me as a Marine. Like, oh, come on, like, I've been through 2 deployments, and as it is, like, I've seen the worst. So the question, my heart as a Marine, that was the only thing that bothered me at times. But like you said, I always kept a cool head about things, and I interact with everybody because I feel like I'm a people person, so I'm a people's person. So I don't really, I like to have good conversations with people out there anyway. But I just took most of the negativity, and I just fueled it as, and used it as a positive thing. Like, it always stayed in my mind throughout the whole training camp. So those kept me sharp and kept me motivated, and it kept me going. So that's why, and that's just the type of person I am. I don't like, some people, they let things get to them and they fall into a depression, or they start believing those things. But for me, I was like, no, because I clearly knew what was the issue with the Okendo fight. And I was like, okay. But I said, okay, so this is a great opportunity for me when I do bounce back. It looks good on me, because people say, like, well, maybe he was with that. He went from that performance to a stellar performance, and look where he's at now.
Right, and no one knows themselves like yourself, and so that you don't play boxing, right? And
yeah, exactly.
If that fight goes on a few more rounds, there may not be a Carl Frampton fight.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because it's funny, people also fail to realize they actually had me suspended medically for like at least 6 months until I got cleared by the doctor. So me being a fighter, I could have I wanted to get back into action. So I was doing everything in my power on my end to make sure the doctors were clearing my eye. So for me to even train, So it was just funny. Like, I went through everything. Like, if I really felt that I was a quitter or I gave up, why would I have pressed so hard to fight a bigger challenge in Carl Frampton? I could have just shied away and said, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just fight somebody else with an easier touch. And then people also don't realize that I never once complained about also going overseas to fight him. Even though me as the world champion, I could have easily kicked and complained and said, no, he needs to come to the States if he wants to fight. I was willing to go to Belfast. Then that fell apart. I was willing to go to London, where his promoter Frank Warren had full control of the card. I didn't, like I said, it didn't bother me where the fight was at, because I knew deep down in my heart that I could beat this guy.
Right. You didn't shy away. I mean, you were ready to go. I mean, 3 different times, and the fight just kept pushing and pushing. So, no, to your credit. And what I even noticed too, from the social media front, even when a guy like Shakir yanks your chain and says, "Hey, send the belt with Bomac," you have fun with it.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't. Because some people, and I'm not saying that Shakur was looking for a reaction, because me and Shakur, we're still friendly. We understand it's a competitive game, and I understand I have something that he wants, so I respect that. I expect that from him, because at one point I was fighting to get my shot at Masako Ito, but for others, when they do stuff like that, they always try to get a reaction out of you for you to bite. And I'm pretty sure if you look back, also Carl Frampton, he even thought that I bit at everything on social media. I'm like, no, that's just me. I just talk with everybody, even the guys that root against me. We can still have a decent, fairly friendly conversation. Like, I mean, I've had guys that would say like crazy things to me on social media, and then turn around and be like, you know what? You're a stand-up guy. I have a lot of respect for you, because you don't. It's hard. And then they always say it's hard not to root for you, because I'm not self-centered. I don't get upset with everything that people say on social media. If anything, I'll take it as a reminder. Okay, let me put this let me make sure to save this, because I'm gonna prove this person wrong too. I'm gonna prove that person wrong, and that's just who I am. But yeah, social media to me, it's just fun, but it also allows people to get a good vision of who you are as a person.
Yeah, I think you do that as well as anybody. So if anyone's not following you, they need to follow you on Twitter and all the social media, because you definitely let who you are out there. It's very true. But at the same time, with the little jabs, with the things like that, do you still feel like you're underestimated?
Of course. But I look at some of my favorite fighters that have gone through similar things. Like, for instance, I'm a big fan of Winky Wright. Winky Wright, he didn't get his respect until the fights with Shane Mosley. And he was pretty far into his career at that time. So it took him a while to get the proper respect that he was looking for. Even the great Bernard Hopkins, he didn't have his signature moment until he was about 35 years old, when he fought Felix Trinidad in 2001. And at that time, he was already a unified world champion, and accomplished a lot in terms of recognition with being a world champion. But he still didn't have his moment until after the Trinidad fight. And even then, we look at it now and say, oh, but Hopkins dominated that fight. But before the fight, you can remember people were already claiming Tito to win the whole tournament, and even knocking Bernard Hopkins out. So
Right.
it happens in boxing. And for me, it doesn't make me upset, because when I look at those individuals, now when people sit back and look at their careers, they respect what they've done. And I look at it as, well, once everything's said and done with my career, maybe people will sit back and look at what I've done in boxing and be like, you know what? That guy was pretty. He was more than just okay. He had a pretty good run in his career, and they start, just giving me my proper respect then. So it doesn't really bother me. And truth be told, it sounds crazy, but I feel a lot comfortable when I am like the underdog, because I don't have that pressure where people expect you to do this or that. And I said it numerous times with Carl Frampton. He was putting more pressure on himself, because one minute it was he was the better boxer. I was a lazy fighter. I had slow feet. He had the quicker jab, the better IQ. And at one point, he was even saying that he had the power to knock me out at any moment of the fight. So when you look at stuff like that, you're putting your pressure on you, because now people are looking to see, well, man, he must be really, really working intensely hard in camp. Let's see that shows up in the fight. And if you look at it, it was the complete opposite. I was the better boxer. I was the better on my feet. I had the more sharper jab, and I was the stronger fighter. So that's why I didn't really get into the whole the battle of words, or put the pressure on myself by even going out there making predictions saying, oh, I'm gonna knock him out, and I'm gonna do it this round. I didn't do that. I just said, no, I just believe I have what it takes to win. But I knew deep inside that I had all those attributes to really dominate and perform.
Well, if there was any doubt after the fight, I think you cleared that up. You mentioned Bernard Hopkins, and I had the opportunity. I'd been around him a few times before, but never the opportunity to interview him. but I did at the Ortiz Hooker media tour. And you mentioned the Tito Trinidad fight. And so I asked him if that was his breakout fight. And you would think so, right? But his answer was the golden boy, Oscar De La Hoya. And I think it has a lot to do with, Oscar made everybody, this.
Yeah.
So, and now they've been partnered for 20 years. So go figure.
I mean, I can understand that because maybe after the Trinidad fight, he still didn't get those huge fights that he wanted, even coming off a huge performance like that and being the undisputed middleweight champion. And back then, we all knew Oscar was boxing. Oscar, all roads led to De La Hoya. I mean, I'm pretty sure if heavyweights could do it, they will fight Oscar De La Hoya back then,
right.
For a huge, not only payday but a big event. So I can understand where he's coming from with that. And yeah, De La Hoya is definitely one of his another one of his shining moments in his career, I may say. But yeah, every fighter, I believe every fighter just has that feeling or knows when when they finally arrived. And even though I've been a world champion since 2019, I believe I finally arrived 2 years later. And I'm just grateful because now you see me, I'm getting mentioned in terms of other big fights with guys like Oscar Valdez and so on.
Right. And one last point on Bernard Hopkins, for those that don't know, he lost his first pro fight.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
So
I believe he lost his first pro fight at light heavyweight. He wasn't even at middleweight. He was like at light heavyweight at the time when he lost his pro debut.
Yeah, he told me that coming out of prison, because that's where he was, he took that fight in 6 weeks, and he needed to stay busy. He needed to, he didn't want to end up back where he was coming from. So, but anyways, kudos to you. We got to talk about your team, because not only do you have, it seems, well, it's unarguable, one of the best teams in boxing with Bomac and Bud and Red and everybody else, but you guys also seem to have the most fun out of every team. You were at the Hooker fight. You guys are always supporting people. Bud is always at everybody's fights, when possible. Right. What is it about that environment, and what has Bud and Bomac and everybody meant to your career?
Well, the environment for starters is more of a family environment. Like we just click, and everyone just no egos involved. And so what I mean by that is, say for instance, when I'm in training camp, the attention is obviously on me, but Bud doesn't come in there and like, well, I'm Bud Crawford and I need you guys to focus over here on me. No, Bud gives me that respect, and he even joins in with the trainers. Like he'll push me sometimes harder than the trainers because he's also like a peer because he's a fighter, so he's an active fighter. So he knows what I'm feeling, and he knows what I'm capable of doing. So it's that right there just shows you how big of a heart he has, and and I give him the same in return. I remember when he was preparing for Kell Brook, I flew out to Colorado to check up on him, and I was in the gym with him, watching over his shoulder, watching over his back, pushing him. Come on, bud. You're almost at the finish line. Come on, bud. You can do this. We got this, bud. You're stronger than that. Come on. I know there's more in you. And I never forget. During those weeks, he came to me and he said, "Hey, bro, thank you." And I was kind of like, thrown back for a bit because, like Bud is is tough skinned individual, but he was like, "No, thank you, man, because I thank you for pushing me." And that right there, it meant a lot to me. And then when you add in Bomac, Red, and Isawu, and Jimmy Belt, we just have fun, man. But we work hard, but they don't make it. They don't make it to whereas it seems like a job. Like it's like we have to do this. We have to no. It's they just make everything like the environment for starters around you just relaxing and calm. And yeah, though we work hard, you don't really look at it that way because everyone's laughing and having fun while we're doing it. So that's what makes the job, a lot easier, especially when we know we've had a great camp and we know we covered everything. We go into the fight so mentally prepared and focused and without any doubt in our mind because we always have a conversation like, okay, Hey Mel, we're getting ready to fight. Let me know how they always ask me, how do you feel? Do you think we covered everything in your mind person? Do you think we covered everything that we needed to do? And I stopped and think like, yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. Like when I think about it, but I thank you for your concern. But I was telling even before the ring walk, they asked me, how am I feeling? I said I'm good because they thought it was funny. This is a funny story. Right before we were going to do the ring walk for the Carl Frampton fight, they just said I was just too relaxed. Like they was like, we want you to be relaxed, but hey, what kind of worried? You're just too calm and relaxed. You all right? They thought something was on my mind. I was like, no, I just feel really have a really good feeling about this fight. I have a really good feeling, and it was blown away because for the most part, I do talk and joke a lot, but every time I get to in that back of that room before the fight, I'm real quiet and relaxed and mellow. And they start to like worry. It's like, are you all right? Like, no, I'm just channeling in what I have to prepare for out there. And they called me up throughout the week and they still happy. Like, man, that's probably one of your best performances. And you covered everything we asked for you to do in camp. And that makes me feel good. And that also makes me feel a lot more confident now going into the next camp because now we always had a working formula, but it seems like even now we're still growing and things are getting better and better with each time that we're all together in the same atmosphere.
Well, as far as your team, like I said, Jamel, one of the best in the business, and it's always great being around you guys and watching you shine on fight night. And we're going to wrap it up here in a minute, but I can't get you off the hook without talking about a potential super fight with Oscar Valdez. Right. Obviously, he took down the man Burchell in dominating fashion. I mean, if no one saw your fight coming, no one definitely saw the way he took out Burchell. First, let me ask you about that fight, and what you thought, and then when can we see you two in the ring?
For starters, he looked great. He looked great, and like you said, he beat the man. He beat the man that I was actually chasing for the past 2 years or so. But like I said, I thought he looked good. I was actually probably one of the only few out there that actually gave him a chance. And I said to myself that I felt that if he took Burchell into the deeper rounds, and he could eventually drown him. But even with my fight, I did not see that coming with the big knockout. But I give him his credit, and he definitely looked good. I had nothing bad to say about his performance. If anything, it just motivates me to get in there and compete against him, and make a great fight.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You almost can look at it the same way with you, where another Olympian and people questioned his boxing and the way he moved and the way he showed angles and switched up, a la Bud Crawford. He almost looked like a different fighter in there that night.
Yes. I definitely can credit a lot to his training with Eddie Reynoso. Eddie Reynoso is a phenomenal trainer, and since they joined forces together, Oscar's been looking good. He's been going back to his boxing roots. We know in the past he liked to brawl a little bit and make it mix it up at times, but the past fight he played it smart. Because I believe that Burchell was even expecting, as they said, a good old fashioned Mexican war and shootout in the middle of the ring, but Valdez knew that wouldn't favor in his way. So he did what was best, which was go back to boxing, and he boxed beautifully. I remember even in the post-fight interview, he kind of apologized to the viewers because he said that people were probably expecting a good toe-to-toe brawl, but there was nothing to apologize about because in the end it looked beautiful. He got the win, more importantly, and he took less damage than we've seen him in the past. So if people could be mad at that, then they're the problem. But I thought he looked great.
Now, you're a southpaw, obviously. He showed that his ability to switch it up a little bit, although that's not really, his go-to. Not to, go out and ask for predictions or anything like that at this stage, but what would a fight like what would a fight between you and him look like, just stylistically?
Stylistically, I think it would be a boxing match, or I would force him to box more because that's just who I am. I mean, even though you can see that I can get down in the trenches as well, but I just that with my physical attributes, why make it, work harder, not I mean work smarter, not harder. But as they say, but I would definitely prepare for mainly those rough and tough battles because that's what I usually go to camp for. I mean, I go to camp to basically focus on maybe what people will say your weaknesses more than your strengths. Like boxing to me, as you see, it comes naturally. So I would always go into camp looking at how I can take away his strength, and his strength is the basically, in my opinion, to at times do get down, in a toe-to-toe brawl, depending on who he's fighting at least. But I would go back to what was best for me, and I would turn it into a chess match, which is boxing.
Do you expect him to be your next fight? Is everything lining up that way?
I'm hoping that he's my next fight, and in terms of everything lining up, as you can see now, is so more of the people calling for the fight. And it's a very easy fight to make since we're both promoted by Top Rank, of course. But I have to go through the situation with the sanctioning bodies because obviously Shakur Stevenson is my mandatory. But we'll just have to wait and see. But like I said, I hope the fight gets made. I know for a fact that he wants to fight. I want to fight, and what you know is kind of rare these days with big fights because there's always something that goes on between a certain fighter feeling that they're the A side or B side. For me, I don't really like I told you earlier, I'd rather be the underdog anyway. So put me in the B side, C side, doesn't matter to me because I know when I get in the ring, I will perform and I feel like I will. That's a winnable fight for me as well. And he's giving me a lot of respect, and I give him that same respect in return. So it's not a hard fight to make, and I hope we can make that soon. I mean soon as maybe September timeframe because I would love to get back into training around the summertime or so.
Now you're a tall guy. You got a big frame, 5'10", fighting at 130. I mean, how much longer can you be at that weight? And do you envision going up to 135 and taking on these young guns that are sitting out there?
The great thing with me is I have a nutritionist, so it does make it a lot easier in terms of making the weight. And I honestly, after Carl Frampton, I thought that was gonna be my last fight at 130. And it's not because I was straining to make the weight. I thought I've accomplished everything that I needed to do at 130, and I was looking forward to actually going to 135. But it wasn't until maybe a few days before the fight, I seen that Oscar Valdez had put a video out. Respectfully watching, saying that he's going to be watching the winner between myself and Frampton. So I looked at that and said, okay, that's potentially another big fight that I can make at 130. So if it's possible, why not? I didn't have an issue making weight this fight. I probably think I'll certainly come in a lot more motivated also for that fight because it's a bigger fight again. I mean, the Frampton fight was big for me as well, but who doesn't want to become a two-time, world champion, a unified world champion, and possibly for the Lineal Ring Magazine title. So that's right now is what motivates me to, to stay. As you see, I didn't put on a lot of weight. I don't blow up between camps, things of that nature. So I always take care of my body, and I always watch, how I look away from the cameras and in the gym. So I would definitely love to stay for at least for that fight. But if that fight is impossible, I definitely will make my run again at lightweight, and we'll just go from there.
Now, it seems like just in talking to you, you're a young 35, even though you've been to war a couple times, but you got a late start in the boxing business. I mean, how long do having a nutrition obviously is a huge thing. How much longer do you want to fight?
Even though a nutritionist and everything is great, I believe they always say with boxing, the first thing to go are your reflexes. And as you can see, I still have my sharp senses with me. But for me, I just take it one fight at a time, and I want to go as far as I can. To be honest, like I want to be. I'm not going to here to do Bernard Hopkins feats and things of that nature. But I mean, like you pointed out, I'm a young 35. I showed it even in my last fight, being an older man. I didn't slow down. I wasn't showing. I wasn't. If anything, as the fight was going on, I was pressing the action more. I was stepping the pace up, and I basically wore him down until he couldn't until he couldn't take anymore. So I always say that if you take care of yourself, take care of your body outside the boxing gym, you can do whatever because people also fail to realize I had less than 100 amateur fights as an amateur, so I didn't take a lot of wear and tear as an amateur also. But I mean, we'll just see. We'll just wait and see. But I still feel great. I didn't come home with any bruises or bumps. I can honestly say that I've never had any like surgeries or injuries that prevented me from, performing. Only thing, the biggest thing I had that stopped, that put a hinder to me was the COVID-19 situation. But as you can see, even in my last fight, I bounced back from that really well. So like for me, I'm just enjoying the ride, and I just want to continue going as far as I can.
Are we ever going to see your stablemate, Terence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. in the ring at 147?
Oh, I love those guys. I mean, Errol is still one of my biggest supporters. People don't know that. Me and Errol, we always speak. He'll always he'll chime in, see how I'm doing. I'll do the same for him. I was definitely checking up on a lot with him after the accident because he was my Olympic teammate. And he still like I still look at him as a brother, and a really close friend because I'm close with his family. People don't know that also. I'm really close with his family. He has family in Long Island, so that's why I was teasing him about him being born in New York because he has family out there as well. But and of course, Bud is my guy also. And that's what I was kind of pointing to with me and Oscar Valdez. Like we have the opportunity to make a really good fight with guys who want to get in the ring with each other, with guys who are working with the same promoter. So why not take advantage of the opportunity? Because you see in today's boxing, it's hard to make the big fights. But I know Bud wants to fight. I know Errol wants to fight. I think with their issue, obviously, it comes down to the business aspect. That's the main issue. They're not afraid of each other. I know that for a fact. They're not afraid of each other. Errol has personally expressed to me that he wants to fight Bud, and we know Bud wants to fight him. I think their issues comes down in terms of sitting at the table and making the fight happen. Whereas me and Oscar Valdez, of course, we get to sit at the table also on the business end, but I think it's still a lot. It's definitely a lot easier to make, and we'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, as a fan, I hope the fight happens. I really do. But like I said, their situation is a lot rockier than the situation with me and Oscar Valdez.
Yeah, and I don't ever believe the ducking part. I've been in camps with EJ many times and seen him go 18 rounds in a 100-degree gym with 3 or 4 different people, and Bud's credentials speak for themselves. So as a fan like yourself, I hope that fight happens sooner than later because boxing can sure use a big fight like that. We'll wrap it up here, though, Jamel, and Jeff Zimmerman with FightNews.com. I really appreciate the time. It's, I had my snow dilemma out here before the fight, but I'm glad I got you after on a high note. You've been a Marine. You represented our country in wars. You've been a U.S. Olympian. You're a world champion from the U.S. What do you want your legacy, or what will your legacy be when you finally decide to hang up the gloves?
For starters, I want to be remembered as one of the best Marines to represent the sport of boxing. I know I definitely honor guys like Ken Norton, who I met before he passed away. Same as Leon Spence. I've spoken with Leon, and then many others. But I want to represent the Marine Corps to this day on a positive note. And more importantly, as well, I want to be remembered as a good individual outside the ring. I respect and love everyone who gives me credit for what I do in terms of outside the ring. But when I look at the greats like Ali, if you really notice, he was more recognized for how he carried himself outside the ring, away from the spotlight, and things of that nature. So I believe that it's more important to be to be recognized as a good human being at the end of the day. But that's just me, and of course I have a great sense of pride with where I come from in Long Island. Like I come from guys like Buddy McGirt, my good friend Chris Algieri. Then I became the 3rd world champion, and now we just had one recently with Joe Smith. So you know, I want to continue carry on that tradition as well as one of Long Island's best fighters to ever put on a pair of gloves.
That's awesome. And on behalf of Richard Steele, your fellow Marine, I'm gonna get your address from Julie or send this to her. But on the back, I don't know if you can see, it has a, let's see here, it has an S.
Oh, I had the logo. Yeah, Superman logo.
So you can see the Superman?
Yeah, you're right.
So you could either use it for Superman or Steel, but I'm going to get you one of these hoodies if you'd like.
Yes, please do, please do.
And if you're ever in Vegas, go check out his gym out there. I've talked to him about you quite a bit, and he was in Mexico with a fighter he's working with, a super middleweight from Guatemala when you fought, but he saw your fight and wanted me to extend congratulations as a fellow Marine. So
tell us that thank you, SuperFight, and hoorah.
Right. Well, Jamel, WBO Junior lightweight champ, got some big options out there in boxing. And again, I appreciate the time. Jeff Zimmerman with FightNews.com, and we'll be following you. And good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll speak again hopefully soon.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Take care.